I was a devoted husband who built my entire life with Amanda. Our 8-year marriage looked perfect to everyone in our community. Nobody suspected what was happening behind closed doors, or the shocking affair I would discover with my coworker Jackson. My family always preached loyalty above everything else. We were tight-knit, inseparable, until Amanda accused me of assault, after I confronted her about the affair. Then they chose her over their own flesh and blood, without question. Before I share how my own family turned against me overnight, let me know where you are watching from. Hit subscribe if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely. I met Amanda during my sophomore year of college. I was studying computer science, focused entirely on building my future career as a software developer. She was majoring in marketing with bright blue eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and this contagious enthusiasm that drew people to her. We met at a mutual friend's study group, and there was this instant connection that I had never experienced before. You should ask for her number. My roommate urged after watching us talk for hours about everything from childhood memories to our favorite sci-fi movies. I did, and 3 days later, we went on our first date. 6 months after that, we were inseparable. 4 years later, after we had both graduated and secured jobs, I proposed on the Seattle waterfront, with the skyline glittering behind us. Yes, 1,000 times yes, she had cried, jumping into my arms. The wedding was everything we had dreamed of. My parents adored her immediately. My dad even pulled me aside during the reception. "Son, you found a keeper. She reminds me of your mother when we first met." My younger sister became Amanda's shopping buddy, and my brother invited us to every football gathering at his place. We were one big happy family bound by Sunday dinners at my parents' suburban home holiday traditions that blended both our family's customs and an unspoken promise that we would always have each other's backs. After the wedding, we settled into a comfortable routine. I climbed the ranks at Horizon Technologies, a growing software company in downtown Seattle. Amanda found success at a marketing agency, eventually becoming their social media director. We bought a charming 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood, with plans to fill those extra rooms with children someday. For 8 years, everything seemed perfect. We traveled to Europe, renovated our kitchen, hosted dinner parties, and built what I thought was an unshakable foundation. Everyone commented on what an ideal couple we were. My mother would often say, "You two remind us of how your father and I were at your age." The first sign that something was wrong came about 10 months ago. Amanda started working later, often not coming home until well after 8 p.m. At first, I did not question it. Her agency had landed several new clients, and I knew how demanding the marketing world could be. "Big project," I would ask, keeping dinner warm for her. "Yeah, this client is super demanding," she would reply, barely making eye contact as she picked at her food. Then came the protective behavior with her phone. Amanda, who once would absent-mindedly leave her phone anywhere around the house, now kept it with her constantly. She would take calls in another room, and I noticed she had added a passcode. When I asked about it casually, she claimed it was a new company policy for data security. "Everyone at the agency has to do it," she explained, but something in her tone did not sound right. I pushed these doubts aside. I trusted Amanda completely and could not imagine her being unfaithful. I told myself I was being paranoid, that this was just a rough patch that all marriages go through. The emotional distance continued to grow between us. Date nights became rarer. Our conversations shorter. Intimacy practically non-existent. When I tried to address it, Amanda would blame work, stress, or fatigue. "I am just going through a lot right now with these deadlines," she would say. "Can you give me some space?" I tried everything to reconnect. Surprised her with weekend getaways. Cooked her favorite meals. Even suggested marriage counseling, which she immediately rejected. "We do not need a stranger telling us how to fix our marriage," she snapped. "There is nothing wrong." Her reaction only increased my suspicions that something more serious was happening. One Tuesday afternoon, I left work early with a migraine. I had texted Amanda, but received no response. When I got home, I went straight to our bedroom to lie down and take some medication, As I reached for the water glass on her nightstand, I accidentally knocked her tablet to the floor. When I picked it up, the screen lit up. It was open to her messages, and a name immediately caught my eye: Jackson Reynolds, my coworker. A software engineer who had joined Horizon Technologies about a year ago. I had introduced them at the company Christmas party. I know I should not have looked. I know privacy matters in a marriage. But something compelled me to scroll through the messages. What I found shattered my world into 1,000 pieces. Miss you already. Last night was amazing. When can you get away again? Terry thinks I am working late on Thursday. Maybe we should just tell him. I cannot keep living this double life. There were hundreds of messages spanning back 6 months, photos I could never unsee, plans they had made, even complaints about me about our marriage, with Jackson sympathizing and telling her she deserved better. My hands shook so hard I dropped the tablet. The room spun around me as waves of nausea hit. This was not just a casual fling or a one-time mistake. This was a full-blown affair with someone I worked with every day. Someone who sat 3 desks away from me. Someone who had looked me in the eye and asked about my weekend plans knowing he would be with my wife. I must have sat there for hours, cycling through disbelief, rage, heartbreak, and numbness. I considered packing my bags and leaving without a word. I thought about confronting Jackson at work the next day. I even briefly contemplated simply pretending I had never seen the messages. But in the end, I knew I needed to face this head on. I deserved answers. I deserved the truth from the woman who had promised to love and honor me. So I waited. I made dinner as if everything was normal. And when Amanda finally came home at 8:30 p.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table with her tablet open to the messages. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I expected it to be. Her face drained of color. She froze in the doorway, her purse slipping from her shoulder to the floor. "Terry, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you have been sleeping with my coworker for 6 months. How you have been lying to my face every day. Please explain that to me." What followed was the most painful conversation of my life. Amanda initially tried to deny the extent of the affair, claiming it had only happened a few times, that it meant nothing. When I pointed out the timeline in their messages, she became defensive. "You would not understand. You have been so distant, so focused on your career. Jackson actually listens to me, actually sees me. I have been distant. I have done everything I could to make this marriage work while you were pulling away." As her excuses crumbled, her anger grew. We argued for hours. I never raised a hand to her, never even raised my voice above what you might use in a tense business meeting. But I was firm. I told her I wanted a divorce, that there was no coming back from this level of betrayal. "Fine," she finally spat. "I will stay with a friend tonight. We can talk about logistics tomorrow." She packed an overnight bag and stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell from the wall and shattered. It was a photo from our honeymoon. How fitting, I thought. I spent that night alternating between tears and stunned silence, trying to process how 8 years of marriage could end like this. I called in sick to work the next day, unable to face Jackson or anyone else. I needed time to figure out my next steps. But life had other plans. At 7 a.m., an insistent knocking woke me from my restless sleep on the couch. When I opened the door, 2 police officers stood on my porch. "Terry Wilson," one asked. "Yes, that is me. We need you to come with us to answer some questions." Confused and still groggy, I asked what this was about. "Your wife, Amanda Wilson, has filed a complaint, alleging you physically assaulted her last night during an argument." The ground seemed to drop out from beneath me. "What?" "That is absolutely not true." They remained stone-faced as they informed me that Amanda had gone to the emergency room with bruises on her arms and a cut on her cheek. She claimed I had grabbed her, shaken her, and pushed her into a wall when she told me she wanted a divorce. It was a complete fabrication, a total inversion of what had actually happened. I tried to explain that we had argued about her affair, that she had left voluntarily, that I had never touched her. One officer took notes, while the other watched me with obvious skepticism. "You can explain all this down at the station," he said finally. I was not technically under arrest, but it was clear I had no real choice. As we walked to their patrol car, neighbors peeked out from behind curtains. Mrs. Daniels, who had brought us a casserole when we first moved in, openly stared from her front porch. The shame was overwhelming, even though I had done nothing wrong. At the police station, I gave my statement, repeatedly emphasizing that the argument had been entirely verbal. I explained about discovering the affair, about confronting Amanda, about her leaving willingly. I even mentioned the security camera we had installed at our front door after a series of package thefts in the neighborhood. It would show her leaving uninjured, I told them. After hours of questioning, they allowed me to leave, but informed me that Amanda had already filed for an emergency restraining order. I could not return to my own home or contact her in any way. "But where am I supposed to go?" I asked, bewildered. The officer shrugged. "Do you have family nearby?" I did, and that was my next stop. Surely my parents, who had always supported me, would offer a place to stay while this nightmare sorted itself out. I drove to their house, rehearsing how I would explain this impossible situation. My mother opened the door but did not step aside to let me in. "Mom, something terrible has happened. Amanda has accused me of—" "We know," she cut me off, her voice icy. "She called us from the hospital. From the mom, she is lying. We argued because she has been having an affair with Jackson from my office. I never touched her." My father appeared behind her, his face a mask of disappointment I had never seen before. "We raised you better than this, Terry. No matter what she did, there is never an excuse for violence against a woman. Dad, please listen to me. I did not hurt her. This is a complete lie. She made it all up." "Then why would she have bruises?" my mother demanded. "Why would she go to the hospital? I do not know. She must have done it to herself. Or maybe this Jackson guy. I do not know. But I need you to believe me." They exchanged a glance I could not interpret. Then my father shook his head. "I think it would be best if you got some help, son. And until you do, until you take responsibility for your actions, I do not think we should have contact." "What? You are choosing her word over mine. I am your son. And that is why this hurts so much," my mother said, tears in her eyes. "Amanda showed us the pictures, Terry. She has always been honest with us." Before I could respond, my sister Julia pulled up in her car. She marched up the walkway, her face contorted with rage. "How could you?" she shouted. "I always knew you had anger issues even when we were kids. Remember when you punched a hole in your bedroom wall? When you lost that video game tournament? I was 12 years old." I protested. "This is completely different. People do not change," she snapped. "I just got off the phone with Amanda. She is terrified of you." I tried calling my brother next, but he refused to even speak with me. He texted only, "Do not contact me or my family until you get the help you need." Just like that. In less than 24 hours, I had lost my wife, my home, my family, and soon my reputation. With nowhere else to go, I checked into the West Side Motel, a dingy place off the highway that rented rooms by the week. The next morning, I received an email from Human Resources at Horizon Technologies, placing me on administrative leave pending an investigation. News travels fast in a small office. Jackson had apparently already told everyone his version of events, casting himself as Amanda's protector from her abusive husband. My coworkers, people I had spent years working alongside, building projects with, sharing lunches with, now viewed me as a monster. I hired an attorney, draining my savings account to pay the retainer. Martin Geller was experienced, but not optimistic. "Domestic violence accusations are taken very seriously these days," he explained in our first meeting, "which is generally a good thing. But in cases of false accusations, it creates a very uphill battle." The temporary restraining order was made permanent after a hearing where Amanda appeared with a fading yellowish bruise on her cheek and a compelling story about my supposed history of controlling behavior. The judge barely glanced at me as he signed the order. The divorce proceedings began simultaneously, with Amanda seeking full ownership of our house and half my retirement accounts, claiming she felt unsafe returning to work due to trauma. My life had become unrecognizable. I spent my days in that motel room, blinds drawn, surviving on vending machine snacks and delivery pizza. I lost 15 pounds, stopped shaving, barely slept. The depression was like a physical weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. One night, after a particularly discouraging call with Martin about potential plea deals to avoid jail time, I hit rock bottom. I sat on the edge of that sagging motel bed and seriously considered giving up, accepting a plea, even though I was innocent. Leaving Seattle. Starting over somewhere new where no one knew me as the software engineer who beat his wife. I even wrote a letter of apology, not because I had done anything wrong, but because I was so beaten down that surrender seemed like the only option left. But something stopped me from sending it. Some small spark of self-respect that refused to be extinguished. The truth mattered. My truth mattered. That night, I made a decision. I would fight back with everything I had. If I was going down, it would not be because I gave up. It would be after exhausting every possible avenue to prove my innocence. The next morning, I called Martin and told him I wanted to switch strategies. No more defense. We go on offense. I want to counter-sue for defamation. I want to pursue charges for filing a false police report. I want to fight. Martin seemed surprised but nodded. It will be expensive and difficult. I do not care. I am not pleading guilty to something I did not do. That afternoon, I met with a new attorney who specialized in false accusations. Melissa Tanner was sharp, aggressive, and most importantly, she believed me. False accusations in divorce proceedings are more common than people realize, she said, especially when infidelity is involved. Let me see what evidence we can gather. Thus began my slow climb out of the darkness. Melissa suggested I join a support group for people who had been falsely accused. There I met others who understood what I was going through. Their stories gave me hope and practical advice. We began methodically building my case. First, I remembered the security camera at our front door. I had installed it myself, and the footage was stored on a cloud server. Sure enough, the video clearly showed Amanda leaving our house the night of our argument, walking steadily carrying her overnight bag with no visible injuries. Next, we located neighbors who had seen Amanda after she left our house. Mrs. Daniels, despite her initial suspicion of me, reluctantly admitted she had seen Amanda driving away that night and had waved to her. She waved back. Mrs. Daniels testified in a deposition. I did not notice any injuries on her face. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. A former boyfriend of Amanda's reached out after hearing about my case through mutual friends. She did the same thing to me, he revealed. We broke up because I caught her cheating. The next thing I knew, she was telling people I had pushed her down the stairs. I did not have the resources to fight it, so I just moved away. I have regretted not standing up for myself ever since. Finally, through discovery, we obtained text messages Amanda had sent to her friend Sophia the night of our argument. Terry found out about Jackson. I left. Staying at your place tomorrow. Tonight I need to create some insurance. And then hours later, done. Went to emergency room. Said Terry hurt me when I asked for divorce. Took pictures. Getting restraining order tomorrow. He will not know what hit him. Sophia had replied, "Are you sure about this? Sounds extreme. Amanda. He deserves it for ruining our life. Plus this way, I get the house." When confronted with this evidence during a deposition, Amanda broke down. Her attorney immediately called for a recess. And when they returned, their tone had completely changed. They wanted to settle. But I did not want to settle. I wanted my name cleared publicly. The preliminary hearing for the assault charges was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in October, almost 4 months after Amanda's initial accusation. I arrived at the courthouse feeling strangely calm. The truth was finally going to come out. The prosecuting attorney presented Amanda's claims first. She took the stand in a conservative navy dress, dabbing at her eyes as she recounted her fabricated version of events. But her story had inconsistencies. She claimed I had pushed her into the wall by the front door. But the security camera footage showed her leaving through that very door, unharmed. When it was our turn, Melissa methodically presented our evidence. The security footage, the neighbor testimonies, the text messages, and finally the testimony from Amanda's ex-boyfriend about her previous false accusation. The judge, who had barely looked at me during the initial restraining order hearing, now stared directly at Amanda. "Mrs. Wilson, are you aware that filing a false police report is a criminal offense?" Her attorney jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, my client stands by her statement that she felt threatened during the argument. Feeling threatened and claiming physical assault that never happened are two very different things," the judge replied sternly. After a brief recess, the judge dismissed all charges against me. Additionally, he referred the case to the district attorney's office to consider charges against Amanda for false reporting. The restraining order was lifted. The divorce proceedings took on an entirely different tone, with Amanda now eager to settle quickly and quietly. Her attorney, likely sensing potential criminal charges, advised her to issue a public apology as part of our agreement. It was published in the same local paper that had run the original story about my arrest. I, Amanda Wilson, acknowledge that statements I made regarding alleged physical abuse by Terry Wilson were not accurate. Mr. Wilson did not assault me on the night in question, or at any other time during our marriage. I regret any damage to Mr. Wilson's reputation and personal relationships that may have resulted from my false claims. Jackson quietly resigned from Horizon Technologies. I heard through the grapevine that he had moved to Portland to start fresh. Amanda moved to Chicago to live with her sister. The divorce was finalized, with a fair division of assets and a clean break. I was formally reinstated at work, though I chose to transfer to a different department. Some colleagues apologized for assuming the worst. Others avoided eye contact in the hallways. I understood both reactions. False accusations create wounds that do not heal neatly or quickly. 3 months after the case was dismissed, I received the first text message from my mother. "Your father and I have been doing some thinking. We miss you. Would you like to come for dinner on Sunday?" No apology. No acknowledgement of how they had abandoned me during the darkest period of my life. Just an invitation that assumed we could pick up where we left off. My sister texted next. "We should talk. We always knew you would never hurt Amanda. Families are complicated." Then my brother football Sunday at my place this weekend. Like old times, their messages left me with a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me desperately wanted my family back. The loneliness of the past 7 months had been crushing. But another part of me, a stronger part, recognized that something fundamental had been broken in our relationship. They had failed the most basic test of family, believing in me when it mattered most. I consulted with my therapist, Dr. Rivera, whom I had been seeing weekly since joining the support group. "What do you want from this reconciliation?" she asked. "What would make it healing rather than harmful for you?" It was a profound question that forced me to think deeply about what family truly meant to me now. After much reflection, I decided to meet with them, not to immediately resume our old relationship, but to establish whether a new one was possible. We met at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant, halfway between my new apartment and their home. The conversation was awkward at first, with superficial questions about work and health. Finally, I took a deep breath and addressed the elephant in the room. "I need to say something. When I needed you most, you chose to believe the worst about me. Without evidence. Without even hearing my side. That hurt more deeply than anything Amanda did. My father started to defend their actions. We were shocked. We did not know what to think. You could have thought that your son, who has never shown any violent tendencies in his entire life, deserved the benefit of the doubt," I replied evenly. My mother began to cry. "We made a terrible mistake, Terry. We failed you. It was the first real acknowledgement of their betrayal, and it opened the door to a more honest conversation. I explained what the past 7 months had been like for me. The isolation, the depression, the financial strain, the public humiliation. I had to rebuild my entire life without the support system I always thought would be there for me, I told them. And in doing so, I learned that I am stronger than I knew. I also learned that relationships have to be built on more than just shared DNA. I set clear conditions for moving forward. I needed genuine apologies, not just from my parents, but from my siblings as well. I needed acknowledgement of the harm they had caused. And I needed time and space to rebuild trust gradually on my terms. I cannot just come back to Sunday dinners and act like nothing happened, I explained. Trust is earned even in families. Maybe especially in families. Some of them accepted these terms more gracefully than others. My sister struggled with the idea that our relationship needed to be rebuilt, rather than simply resumed. My brother seemed uncomfortable with the emotional honesty the process required. But my parents, to their credit, respected my boundaries. Over the following months, I developed a new support network beyond my family. Friends from the support group became close confidants. Colleagues from my new department invited me to social events. I even started dating again, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. I met Natalie at a community volunteer event, planting trees in a city park. She was straightforward, compassionate, and unimpressed by superficial charm. When I eventually shared my story with her, she listened without judgment. "That shows remarkable resilience," she said when I finished. "Not everyone could have fought back the way you did." My relationship with my family slowly evolved into something different than before, but perhaps healthier. Our interactions became more authentic, less bound by unspoken expectations. Some Sunday dinners resumed, though not every week. Holiday gatherings continued now, with Natalie sometimes by my side. The most important change was internal. I no longer defined myself primarily as a victim of false accusations or betrayal. That chapter was part of my story, but it did not define me. What defined me was how I had responded to adversity, how I had stood up for the truth, and how I had rebuilt my life on my own terms. Looking back now, I understand that blood relation does not automatically guarantee unconditional support. True family, I have learned, consists of the people who stand by you when standing by you is difficult. Sometimes those people share your DNA. Sometimes they do not. I have also learned that forgiveness is possible, without forgetting that boundaries can be both compassionate and firm, and that sometimes the most painful experiences lead to the most profound growth. If you have ever been falsely accused, abandoned by those you trusted, or forced to rebuild your life from the ground up, know that you are not alone. There is strength in your story and power in your resilience. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with family after a betrayal? What boundaries did you need to set? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and recovery. Thank you for listening. And remember, your truth matters, even when no one else believes it.